Caprice on page 90 of Beginning Classroom Guitar is another great miniature that really helps us to develop some technique in our left and right hands and to continue the idea of building independence between our fingers as well as coordination. Ferdinando Carulli has written a number of pieces that we've learned in this book, and really wonderful miniatures that do focus on specific problems. So in this piece, we have a couple of interesting things going on, most notably bassline melodies, which is something we haven't really worked on up to this point. Let's take a look. At the beginning of the piece, we notice our time signature is 4/4, 4 beats per measure. Quarter note gets the beat, and the majority of the piece is eighth notes. So again, we're counting 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and very consistently throughout the piece. We have 1 sharp in the key signature. All Fs are F sharp. So throughout the piece, if you have an F, you'll play it as a sharp. There is 1 accidental on the last measure of the second line, measure 6, where we have an F natural, and we'll talk about that when we get there. So these are all arpeggiations. These are all chords that have been broken up into arpeggios along with a moving bass line. So if we look at the first two measures outline a G chord, our G major chord. And what we are given is the opening note, G, establishes the chord. And then this very interesting walking bass line. Little scale. So what you're going to want to do is look at the top line, the notes that stems go up, and then examine what the bottom line is doing, the stems that go down. And that's where we're going to get our walking bass line. In measure 2, we also get something interesting. We get something called a petal point. And we've seen this in earlier pieces. The low D provides a bass, but isn't important. We don't have to accent that note, and since it repeats, the ear hears it anyway. So if anything, we want to de-emphasize that low D. We want to hear that top note. Starting in measure 3, we move to a new chord shape, a nice little A minor chord. So now we start out with an A and have a walking bass line, and then our pedal point, still against an open D. In measure 5, we move to a G7 chord. We start out with a B, an open B, with our walking bass line. Now we have our little pedal, which has changed to G, and in measure 6, we'll actually have that F natural rather than F sharp. Starting in measure 7, we have an arpeggio of a C major chord. In measure 8, we go to a G chord, to a D7 chord, in both cases P-I-M-A in the right hand, and then we break down a G major chord into this simple arpeggio where the bass is again moving. The hardest part of this is going to be the stretch between your third and fourth finger. If that becomes too difficult, use your pinky for the high note and use finger 2 for the low G. Whichever works better for you. So this is a wonderful exercise in a moving line in the bass, which will help our thumb to be able to play melody, in a pedal point, de-emphasizing, so balance, and then moving between these chords.